Hey guys, it's Mimi. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. You guys really liked the last story time that I did, so I wanted to bring you another one, but this one is actually like a really important and cool story to me, so I'm really excited to tell it to you. This story is going to be the story of how I met my husband. I'm going to make it a 3-part series, so you guys will be able to follow along our journey and our story with us. And my husband is actually also going to be here to give his commentary and his side of the story as well. That way you guys can kind of see both perspectives. It's kind of a funny story, and I'm really excited to recount on that experience myself and also see what my husband says about it, because I haven't really heard him tell this side of the story very often. So before we get started into the video, I just want to say that I would love and appreciate it so much if you decided to subscribe to my channel. I'm a very new YouTuber, so every time I see someone new subscribes, it honestly makes me so happy and excited. And when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I will be releasing a kind of blooper or outtake video for you all to see as well. And with that being said, let's just jump right into the video. Okay, so once upon a time, I feel like all stories should start that way. It was summer of 2016, I want to say. Yeah, so 3 years ago now, which is super weird to think about. I was working at a company, it was a sales company, and I was recently promoted to be a sales manager for a new branch office that was opening up. At the time, I was living in Salt Lake City, Utah. I was going to school at the University of Utah, and I was just like loving life. I loved living in Salt Lake. And then I got that offer to move down to Provo, where that new office was opening up. I kind of had like mixed feelings about this offer because my family lives really close to Provo, so that would be a really good thing. I would actually stay with them for the summer so I could see them more often than I was, but I just didn't really want to live in Provo. My mom always wanted me to go to BYU. She went to BYU and she loved living in Provo, but from like my personal experiences at that point, I did not want to move down there. I didn't think I would really like the people, and I heard some awful things about the guys. If you're like a Utah local, you know about like the Provo Bros or the Provo All-Stars. There's just a bunch of really like cocky guys who are like really full of themselves and go work out at Vasa and drink protein powder and all this stuff. And I had gone on a couple of dates with guys who were from Provo, and I just wasn't really impressed, but I decided to take the job anyway. I moved down to Provo and I started working in this sales office.
So the way I met Mimi, actually, is the same thing I tell everybody, super easy, is that we met working over the summer at the same job. To me, the most interesting part of the story, though, is how I ended up working at the same place that she did over the summer. Basically, backing way up, I got called to serve my mission in Curitiba South mission in Brazil. So when I went to the MTC, I was there in my district. There was a guy there named Elder Tibbets. I got to know him pretty well. I was there for 6 weeks in the MTC since I was speaking Portuguese. When we ended up leaving the MTC, I was temporarily reassigned to San Diego because my visa didn't come through, but then ended up being a permanent reassignment, so I never ended up going to Brazil. Never really thought about the guys in my MTC district again even, just because I never really saw them, I didn't interact with them, and they all went to a different country than me because I was the only one who didn't get my visa. Then when I went back to school, I was working on campus actually, in the electrical computer engineering shop, because that's what my major was at the time. One day I was at the temple and decided to do initiatories that day, and while I was there, I heard a voice from somebody else that was there in another room next to me, and it just sounded like super familiar. And so I was sitting there for a minute and I realized it was Elder Tibbets, or Bryson. I decided, I was like, oh, I'll just wait until he's done. So I got done, waited probably 5 or 10 minutes, and he came out, and I just said, oh, hey man, how's it going? We talked for a second. And so he's like, let me get your number real quick, and I'll put it in my phone. And then we asked like what each other were up to, and I told him where I was working, and he told me he had just started a job recently, and that he was just finishing up training for his job, and how he was really enjoying it so far. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Didn't really think anything of it. 2 days later, I got a phone call, and they said that Bryson had actually recommended me for a job. And I was like, oh, you know, actually that's fine. I'm not really interested in the job. I already have a job. And she was like, well, by the way, the starting pay is $17. And I went, oh, what? What did you say the name of the company was again? And so then she gave me a little bit more info about the job. And I said, what the heck? You know, I can maybe do a second job on the side. It was something that they say you could do part-time. that wasn't super time intensive or anything. So I was like, what the heck, I'll go in. So I went in for my interview, and that's actually where I met Mimi for the first time.
So it was a normal summer day and I was running interviews. That was my job. This one guy comes in for an interview and his name was Eric. He totally came in and he had the vibe of the Provo, like all-star kind of guy that I didn't really like, or so I thought at the time. Because he came in, he was dressed really well, he's really cute obviously, and he was very confident. And I was confident too, but I don't know, as like the manager, I don't know, I wanted to be like the authority in the room. And it's not like I didn't feel like he was respecting me or anything, but I don't know. I didn't like him. So I interviewed him and I knew by the end of the interview that he would do a really good job and I would have to offer him a position even though I didn't really like him or like want to work with him.
At the time, like I didn't think anything of her like, oh man, I want to date her or anything. My mindset was completely like, this is a job, and so it was just kind of that professional mindset. So I just went in and interviewed. I thought it went pretty well and then ended up getting the job. At the time, like I said, I was actually working another job already, so I wasn't too worried about it. Figured what the heck, I'll see if I can squeeze in some hours around what I was doing.
So Eric starts his training and he did really well in training. My manager, who was like also, she was running the branch office and we were like great friends. She was like, yeah, this Eric kid, like he's one to watch out for. He seems really smart. And I'm just like, oh, whatever, like enough, I don't care. And I remember his first like couple weeks on the job, he did so well, like he killed it. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, Eric, like asking him for tips. And I was like, oh my gosh, like he's so overrated, whatever, like who cares, I hate Eric. And I just totally like did not like him. And we were actually supposed to do daily check-in calls with our sales field. So we were supposed to call every single sales rep and get like their appointments for the day. And I just refused to call Eric. I was like, I'm not calling him, like that guy's such a tool, I don't want to talk to him. And I would just like push it off to one of the assistant managers because I literally did not want to talk to him. I literally hated him.
Long story short, things didn't work out in my other job, and so I ended up having to leave it all of a sudden. And then working with Mimi was actually my new full-time job. Right off the bat, like I didn't talk to her a ton. She's my manager, and so I just kind of would talk to her, check in every once in a while because it was a sales job. She'd be one of the managers, and so I'd have to talk to her. But I remember partway through the summer, I don't know, maybe like a month in, so probably June time frame, there was like a leadership meeting to train new assistant managers, and she said that I should go to it. I remember after that meeting, I ended up kind of talking to Mimi for a while, and that was probably the first time we had a real conversation. I got to know her. She talked to me about how she had plans to go on a mission and different things that she was interested in. And that's where I really gained a lot of respect for her as a person, just because I hadn't interacted with her too much before, but I guess just kind of seeing her testimony and seeing how much she cared about the church and just kind of the things that she was sharing about her goals and the things that she was working towards in life. Actually, that's probably the first moment where I like really, like I said, respected her, but just kind of like recognized her as a person more than just someone that I worked with.
I don't know, somehow the conversation switched and we started talking about the gospel. We started talking about our religion. We both are members of the same church, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I started talking to him. I don't even know how it came up actually, but I was talking to him about how I wanted to serve a mission, how I was like, I read my scriptures every day. I don't know. We just started talking about that. And with that conversation, like it just changed. I started seeing him in a different way because he's a return missionary and he has an amazing testimony. And if he starts talking about it, you can just tell the amazing faith that he has. And that's always been something that I've looked for in a partner. Oh my gosh, by the way, I totally forgot to mention this, but this whole time I was dating someone else too. So I was like, not even like looking to date anyone. I was in a relationship. But anyway, Eric and I started like talking more and actually becoming friends. So later on in the summer, I actually ended up breaking up with the guy that I was in a relationship with. It wasn't because of Eric at all. I still did not even like see him that way. But it wasn't right with that guy. And so we broke up. I was then single and Eric and I were still just friends. And then at the end of the summer, we actually had a conference for work. It was out in Idaho. So we had to drive out there. At the conference, we were like hanging out a lot and we were like having a really good time. And that was when I finally like it clicked and I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy's really cute and like really funny, and I think I'm starting to like him. So it all started there.
We were at the conference, we were hanging out a lot, and that's where, like, I think for me, things kind of shifted a little bit from just being friends to being like, oh, you know, actually I like might be interested in this girl. When we were driving back, actually, it was just Mimi and I in the car. I was driving. It was like right after we left, like we were talking about McDonald's, I think, and like random stuff. I don't even know how it came up, but I was like, you know, like I should probably ask her out. And I almost did. Like we were turning around in a McDonald's parking lot, and I almost like asked her out right there, but I didn't, because I was like, you know what? If she's not interested in me at all right now, this is gonna be a really long 4-hour car ride if I ask her out at the very beginning and she says no. So I was like, let me not do that. Terrible idea. So instead I was like, I'll figure out a time later. So we ended up then driving back. We were just talking the whole way, and I remember as we were driving, I would catch Mimi kind of looking at me, and she wasn't just looking at me. It was almost kind of like staring, or like, you know, kind of like that look that someone gives like when they're like interested in somebody. I was like getting that that vibe from her totally, and I even called her out on it, and I asked her why she kept looking at me like that, because she would just be like sitting in her seat, she had her blanket on, like, because she was cold, trying to be cozy, and she kept looking over at me, and she kept looking over at me, and I tried to call her out on it, but she tried to play it off. I was like, no, I'm not doing anything, I don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, still nothing happened there. I should have taken a hint there, but I didn't. Shortly after that, Mimi was leaving to go film her show, which I'm sure she'll talk about a lot more. Right before she took off, we were both in the office and we were talking, and then I like walked her out to her car. She ended up giving me a hug goodbye. And I remember that hug, like, it was a lot longer than a normal hug, especially for just friends. And I remember I was like, dang, that was like an awesome hug. So like we said goodbye, and she went on her trip.
Right when we got home, I had to go out of town. I was actually going out of the country to film this reality TV show I was on called The Fashion Hero. I have a story time all about The Fashion Hero if you want to like know about my experience on the show. But I was going to be out of the country for like a month filming this TV show. It was a weird spot because like I knew I liked him and I thought he was really cool, but I was going out of town for a month. He would be in Provo and I would be in Salt Lake, which is only about an hour away from each other. But I mean, we weren't even dating yet. Like that would have just been hard to do that, you know? So then I go up to Canada, to Montreal, where we're filming the show. I didn't know they were gonna do this, but when I got to set for the show, they actually took all of our phones away for the whole time we were there, except for like a couple times we could like have our phones back for a little bit. But so then I was like, okay, well, I can't even like use my phone. There's no way this guy's gonna be here like when I get back. Like Eric was a cute guy. He was going on dates all summer long while we were friends. I was like, no, there's no way he's gonna like still be single. I noticed like the couple of times when we got our phones back, I would like wanna call Eric. We had talked on the phone because we were good friends, but I was like, wait, no, I should call my mom and my sister because like they miss me a lot and they're my family. But when I'd have my phone during those times, I would just wanna call him. And so there were a couple of times I did call him before my family. I just wanted to talk to him.
She ended up video calling me one day, and I thought it was weird because she should have been talking to her family, but she was talking to me instead. And then I remember I messaged her that like, she was like, oh, do you miss me at all? And I was like, well, yeah, actually, because like you give the best hugs, because that hug she gave me before she left was awesome. I was like, yeah, you know, just said it, didn't really think much of it.
So as filming goes on, just a couple days in, I start to feel really, really sick. Sicker than I've ever felt like in my whole entire life. Like I literally thought I was gonna die. My throat was so swelled up, I couldn't eat anything because anytime I like tried to swallow, it was unbearable pain. I didn't drink any water. There was actually a day on set that I literally passed out because I hadn't eaten or drank anything for like a week. So I was really, really sick. I ended up having to go to the hospital while I was there. I actually had to end up being sent home because they didn't want me to get any of the other contestants sick. So I had to leave, even though I would have been there for the rest of the month because I made like the final round of the show. Spoiler alert, sorry. When I got back, we obviously started talking again and like seeing each other again. It was awkward because while I was gone, like I realized I really missed him, and he realized he missed me. And he said like he missed me and he never really misses people, so it was like kind of weird. So when I got back in town, it was like kind of awkward because like we both kind of knew we liked each other, but like it wasn't, no one had said it yet.
I'm getting like a lot of good signals, but still not doing anything about it, because I was like, you know, still, if I'm into her and she's not into me and I ask her out, it'll make everything super awkward. So I was like, you know, I gotta figure out a way to do this so that it doesn't end up awkward for both of us. I honestly don't remember quite how it happened, but for some reason Mimi wanted me to meet her in Salt Lake. She did a modeling shoot, and then after that she was gonna need to sign paperwork to be able to move into her apartment. And so we got done with her lease and we went over to Red Iguana to kind of talk and have a meal, because my friends had been there several times and they said it was awesome. So I said, hey, this is a perfect opportunity. We're in Salt Lake, let's go.
So we go to this restaurant. We actually walked in and we got a table for two. It was like a sit-down restaurant when I was just planning on like grabbing drive-through, because that was like what I did at that point in my life. But we went and they sit us down and they're like, is this table okay? And it was so funny because it was literally this little table in its own little room, and it's like romantic. It's like a pink wall and like it's like a date table.
I remember the whole time we were kind of like joking or kind of tiptoeing around the idea of if it was a date or not. And I remember I was kind of like, I feel like I was the one kind of leaning towards it is a date, because I was like, hey, you know, there's the two of us. I asked you to dinner or lunch, dinner, I don't remember what time it was. Like, it might be a date. And Mimi's like, oh, it can't be a date because I get really nervous on dates, so this can't be a date or else I'll get nervous. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's not a date. I remember it was like super almost flirty, like, yeah, a little bit flirty. Just kind of with that whole idea of like, are we on a date? Are we not? Like, oh, maybe I'll just pay for your meal, so then it is a date, and then you have to deal with that.
But then at the end of the day, he actually ended up paying for my bill. So it was a date, but we don't know if we even, I consider that our first date, but I don't know if he does. I ended up going back to work in that same office, and we had like this barbecue, an end of summer barbecue.
And so we talked a little bit there, but we didn't get to really talk. And I was like, oh man, this is like my last chance really before we move offices and stuff. So I need to find out. I told her, hey, we need to hang out after this gets done. And so I invited her over to my apartment so that we could talk and things.
So then we were sitting there just talking or whatever, and then I remember, I don't even know how this came up, but still to this day, this literally makes me like so mad. I'm like, why did this even happen? It's so embarrassing.
Basically, I don't know exactly how it came up, but she asked me a question like, oh, like, how do you know, or what is that? Or, I don't remember what the question was, but I said, oh, it's because you're into me.
And I was like, excuse me? Like, what are you talking about?
And I remember I caught her off guard, but like, first of all, let me back it up a half second here and just say that like, I've been thinking this through, trying to figure out the best way of how I could ask her out and make it a date without making things super awkward. And so what I decided was, I would say that she was into me, and hopefully she'd say yes. I don't know what I was expecting her to say. I would say that she was into me, and then if she wasn't, I'd be like, haha, no, I was just kidding. Like, are you kidding me? No, that's super weird. But then if she said yes, then I'd be like, oh, cool, like, let's go out.
And then right in that moment, his roommate walks in, who has actually also worked with us in the summer. He was also a sales rep in our office, so I knew him too. So he walks in like right at that moment before I could even respond. And we're like, oh, hi, how are you? And we just start like this convo, and it was awkward because like, why, he was probably like, why is my manager at my house? And
so we hadn't really got to talk about what we just said at all, and it was just still super awkward. But you just walked in, and we were having to talk to him for a minute, and then finally like he like sat down at the table and was talking with us, and then we got quiet, and he was like, well, okay, see you guys, and went back into his room.
It was like kind of late, so I was like, oh, I should get going home. So I started to walk out to my car, and Eric is like, I'll walk you out. And I was like, okay, fine. And so we're walking, and I'm like, what? Like, why did you say that? Like,
and then Mimi was like, you can't just say that to me, what the heck? And I was like, well, why not? She's like, well, you like me too. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh yeah? And I was like, cool, yeah. So you didn't deny it, so you like me and I like you, so we're good.
Oh my gosh. I remember I was so embarrassed, but I was so happy because like we finally said it, and then he said he wanted to take me on a date sometime, and I said yes.
But that's really how it all started. That final moment where I did it, where I said, hey, you know what, got nothing to lose, went for it, and worked out, and then ended up, well, then I guess you'll have to check the next video to find out what happens after that.
That is part 1. That's how we met and started dating. Now we're married. Can you believe it? It's such a cute story. I know, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this part 1 of the video. We're going to have 2 more parts coming out after this. So be sure to watch out for those. You can subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified when those come out. Be sure to leave us a comment below. We'll both try to be responding to comments. We love chatting with you guys. Well, I do. You've never really done it.
We'll see if I comment. I don't know.
Be sure to comment down below your thoughts on the video. If you have, like, what's your situation? If you're married, how did you meet your significant other? And relationship advice if you need it. We'll
Props
try
for
to
my
give
ballsy
it to you.
move, you know?
Oh my gosh. Literally, I'm still
She's still
so
mad.
mad.
Still mad
What
about it.
was that?
Genius, that's what it was.
Oh my gosh.
Get some respect down in the comments.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, and we would love to connect with you guys on social media. So all of my social media links will be down in the description, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
See ya.